My wife, Emily, slipped the ring off her finger and tossed it into a barrel of used corks like it was trash. As of today, she told me, I'm a single woman. She thought it was her declaration of freedom, the overture to her new life. She didn't know it was actually the epitaph for her social death, and this grand funeral was set to begin the moment the mouths of every important person in our Napa Valley town turned an impossible, unwashable shade of blue. Everything was under my control. It was a normal Wednesday afternoon, the final moments of preparation before the annual Cabernet Sauvignon tasting. As the general manager of Sawyer Vineyards, one of the oldest wineries in the valley, I, Sebastian Sawyer, had to deal with all sorts of details. While I was checking on our Founders Reserve series in the underground cellar, the click-clack of Emily's heels echoed on the stone stairs. That sound was like a countdown to doom. Emily walked toward me in those red-soled high heels that cost a month of my salary. Her casual outfit, which looked ordinary but cost a fortune, clashed completely with the earthy atmosphere of the wine cellar. Her nails gleamed, and her carefully made-up face was filled with contempt. She looked at me like I was dog crap she'd stepped on while wearing a brand-new pair of luxury shoes. Sebastian, she said my name with that tone she uses for waiters, I have something to tell you. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I continued siphoning wine from the oak barrel, just as my grandfather had taught me. Never leave your work for anyone, he'd said, especially when it comes to the quality of the wine. The liquid in the siphon showed a perfect deep red with an amber hint from the oak. I'm listening, I said without looking up, swirling the wine in my glass to release the aromas that had been locked away for at least 10 years. At the tasting tonight, I will be attending with Todd as my partner, not as your wife. She deliberately emphasized the word partner as if she were announcing some monumental decision. I raised my head and saw her dramatically remove her wedding ring, as if it were some kind of shackle holding her back. Today, I'm single, she declared, and with an almost theatrical flick of her wrist, she tossed the ring with precision and a bit of force toward the barrel of used corks. The ring made a soft thud as it sank among the corks, as if being buried. I calmly tasted the freshly drawn wine, letting it rest on my tongue long enough to feel the tannins and the oaky aftertaste. People are always surprised that I can distinguish a dozen flavors in a single sip of wine. They don't know that this same sensitivity in my palate also allows me to taste the bitterness of lies. Todd's car is at the back gate, I said slowly, my voice low but clear enough for her to hear. That rented Mercedes has an exhaust problem. Half the town has heard it. Also tell him he needs to pay last month's bill. My patience, like my wine, has a vintage limit. Emily's face froze instantly, the comeback she had prepared getting stuck in her throat. Her perfectly drawn eyebrows furrowed slightly, a flash of panic crossing her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by arrogance. You think you know everything, don't you? She sneered. You're just a country boy who doesn't understand anything beyond grapes and barrels. At least Todd is a real man. He knows how to appreciate the finer things in life instead of having hands as rough as a farmhand's all day. Finer things cost money, Emily. I returned the wine to the barrel and wiped my stained hands. And Todd can barely keep his own pants up. Last week the collar of his shirt was already frayed because he doesn't want to buy a new one. You're lying. Her voice went up an octave. Todd's business is much bigger than your little winery. He has clients in New York and Los Angeles. He sold his office last month to pay off debts, I interrupted. That shabby place he rents now doesn't even have its own desk. It's borrowed. As for the Mercedes, he borrowed it from his cousin's used car dealership to impress you. His watch is a fake, his suit is rented, and even his supposed wine expertise he learned from YouTube. Emily was stunned, her mouth opening and closing several times without a sound. That carefully constructed image of elegance crumbled on her face like a wall cracking during an earthquake. How could you know all this? She whispered, her face pale. I know more than you imagine. I wiped the wine stains from my hands. That's the talent of the country boy you despise. I observe, I memorize, and I wait. Just like making wine, you have to be patient and wait for the right moment to mature. Emily seemed to suddenly react to something, her gaze becoming sharp and alert. Are you spying on me? No need, I smiled bitterly. You and Todd have been extremely careless. Did you forget that Simon is my cousin? He works at the bank and Todd's loan application has been rejected 5 times. Your travel expenses have been used to pay his rent, haven't they? Those marketing receipts that suddenly appeared perfectly match his trips to Los Angeles. Your phone's password changed from 1028 to 512, which just happens to be Todd's birthday. They're small things, but enough for a country boy like me to complete the puzzle. Emily's face went from white to red and then to a pasty gray. Her fingers unconsciously stroked the mark on her ring finger where the ring had been for 20 years. Say what you want. She finally regained her composure, her voice filled with determination. After tonight, everything will be different. Sawyer Vineyards will have a new beginning, a new direction. You old-fashioned dinosaur, will be history. With that, she turned to leave, her heels tapping a resolute rhythm on the stone floor. I waited until the sound of her footsteps disappeared completely, before walking over to the barrel of corks. I reached my hand in, searching for the ring buried at the bottom. Finding it, I gently wiped off the attached dust and examined it in the palm of my hand. It was a simple gold band with our wedding date engraved on the inside. 20 years ago, when I bought it by saving every penny, I thought it would be a symbol of eternity. There will be a new beginning, I muttered to myself, but not the kind you imagine. People always think I'm just a simple winery manager, a quiet workaholic, someone who only knows how to care for vineyards and barrels with no eloquence or social savvy. That's how Emily saw me. Countless times she had mocked my stiffness and boredom in front of her friends, describing me as a poor sap who understood nothing beyond wine. Even at our last town dinner, in front of the mayor and other vintners, she said, "You know what a romantic declaration from Sebastian sounds like? This year we had 20% more rain than last year, so the acidity of the grapes is perfect." The end. The whole table laughed. I was the only one who couldn't. Another time at her birthday party, I gave her a specially crafted commemorative wine. She said in front of all the guests, "Thanks for the wine, darling. I'll put it in the kitchen to use for beef stew." Amid the laughter, I saw her and Todd exchange a meaningful glance. Thinking about it now, their affair probably started then. She never knew that this very appearance of an honest man was my best disguise. My brain stores every detail like a computer. Every marketing expense Emily claimed in the last 6 months matched Todd's travel itineraries with astonishing accuracy. Her phone, since she changed the password 3 months ago, was accidentally unlocked with my fingerprint once when she was drunk, revealing messages to me that shouldn't exist. She began to show an unusual interest in the winery's financial reports, especially the section on our most valuable asset, the Founders Collection. I even noticed she started taking personal items from the house. Those expensive jewels and clothes disappeared one by one, as if she were preparing for some big change. At first, I thought she just wanted to store them elsewhere, until one day I found a new passport and a receipt for a one-way plane ticket in her travel bag. Most crucially, Todd had been in frequent contact with disreputable wine merchants. These guys are known for selling low-quality wines, some even suspected of mixing in industrial alcohol. Through my network of contacts in the industry, developed over years, I already had this information. An old friend of mine, a retired wine critic, called me last week specifically to warn me, "Sebastian, watch out for that slippery fellow. He's got his eyes on your winery." All these scattered clues began to connect in my mind, forming a web. Emily's declaration of being single today undoubtedly confirmed my worst suspicions. What did they plan to unleash at tonight's tasting? I pocketed the ring and quickly headed to the surveillance room. This place, which Emily ridiculed as outdated equipment, was about to become the key to revealing the truth. She would never understand that sometimes old technology is harder to bypass, especially those cameras installed in discreet corners that, because they look like products from the last century, don't arouse suspicion. Emily always complained that I wasted money on this obsolete equipment. She didn't know that these very obsolete things would become the last line of defense to protect the winery. In the era before smartphones and cloud storage, my grandfather taught me, "Remember, Sebastian, the most important things you must control yourself. You can't depend on strangers." The surveillance room was small and dark, with old monitors hanging on the walls connected to cameras in every corner of the winery. This system looked like something out of the 70s or 80s, but I insisted on using and maintaining it regularly, precisely for this moment. I checked the surveillance recording from the back door. The image was somewhat blurry, but clear enough to see what was happening. Todd was stealthily taking several cardboard boxes out of the car, deliberately blocking most of the camera with his body, but he still gave himself away. He handed the boxes to the temporary worker, Simon, and gave him a wad of cash. Simon looked nervous and uncomfortable, but he accepted the boxes and the money. I zoomed in on the image to carefully observe Simon's expression as he took the money, a young face mixed with greed and fear. I know that kind of expression all too well, like someone who knows they're doing something wrong but can't resist the temptation. I paused the recording and thought for a moment. Simon had come to apply for a job at the winery 3 months ago, saying he needed money for his mother's medical treatment. I remember him mentioning that his mother suffered from some kind of illness that required special treatment. The local hospital couldn't treat her, and she needed to go to a major hospital in San Francisco. According to him, that treatment cost about $20,000, an astronomical sum for a young man like him. I remember the day of the interview. He wore a worn-out shirt and was constantly rubbing his hands, so nervous that he even messed up the basic wine tasting procedure. But I still hired him, because I saw in his eyes the concern for his mother and the desire to work. I even made an exception by giving him a salary 20% higher than normal temporary workers. I also arranged for him to stay in the employee housing provided by the winery to reduce his expenses. This desperate need for money made him a perfect accomplice. Todd and Emily clearly knew how to find people's weaknesses and exploit them. "It's you, young man," I said softly, checking Simon's employee file for his work schedule. This afternoon he was assigned to the bottling area and would soon go to the break room for lunch. Instead of looking for Simon directly, I first went to the kitchen to get a bottle of ice-cold water. On this hot afternoon, a bottle of cold water is the best icebreaker. This is also the experience of years of running the winery. People reveal more when they are relaxed than when they are tense. When I entered the break room, Simon was sitting in a corner, nervously rubbing his hands, looking completely lost. Several other workers were playing cards without paying attention to his unusual behavior. He had a simple sandwich in front of him, but he had barely touched it. His eyes occasionally glanced toward the door, as if he were expecting or fearing someone's arrival. I walked past the workers playing cards. When they saw me, they immediately put down their cards, pretending to be resting. I nodded at them to continue and went straight to Simon. "You know," I said to Simon, "my grandfather used to say that people with worries should drink cold water, not wine. Wine makes your thoughts more muddled, while water brings clarity." I handed him the cold water and said in the most casual voice, "Simon, it's hot, cool down. Come to the tasting tonight too, to learn a little." This deliberately created sense of normalcy made him feel more helpless. As he took the bottle, his hands were shaking so much he almost dropped it. Thanks, Mr. Sawyer," he stammered, his voice barely audible. I sat down in the chair next to him, discreetly observing his reaction. Tiny beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, not just from the summer heat. "You don't look well," I pretended to be concerned. "Are you too tired from work?" No, I'm fine," he forced a smile. "I'm just a little hot." "Yes, it certainly is hot," I nodded casually and then changed the subject. "I heard your mother's illness is complicated. The local hospital's no good. You have to go to San Francisco, which costs a lot of money." This sentence was the last straw. He stood up abruptly, a movement so large that an unlabeled vial fell out of his pocket. It rolled across the concrete floor, stopping right in front of my boot. The air froze instantly. Simon's face turned pale suddenly. He tried to bend down to pick it up, but I picked it up first. I examined the small vial with feigned curiosity and then looked into his terrified eyes. The small vial had no label and contained a colorless, transparent liquid. Ordinary people might think it was some kind of eye drops or nasal spray, but my nose sharply caught a smell that didn't belong to any medical product. It was the smell of some kind of chemical solvent normally used for mixing low-quality wines. Suddenly, the whole room fell silent. The other workers put down their cards, and all eyes focused on us. "To my office." Now, my voice was terrifyingly calm. The other workers pretended not to see this scene, But I knew that before the end of the day, the entire winery would know that Simon had been called to the boss's office and seemed to be in big trouble. This kind of rumor spreads faster than any official notice. As my father used to say, in a small town, rumors ferment faster than grape juice. I took Simon to my office and closed the door. He was already so nervous that he was sweating profusely, not knowing whether to sit or stand. His eyes were constantly darting around the room as if looking for an escape route. He looked like he was about to collapse, his hands tightly clasped, knuckles white, and his whole body visibly trembling. "Sit down," I pointed to the chair in front of me. He sat down mechanically, his hands still tightly intertwined, knuckles white. I placed the small vial on the table and slowly spun it, forcing his gaze to follow. "Tell me, what is this?" Just eye drops, sir." He tried to lie, but the tremor in his voice gave him away. "My eyes are a little dry." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Then I suppose you wouldn't mind if I tried it. After all, a winemaker's tongue is the most accurate detection instrument." I made a move as if to open the cap. "No!" he almost shouted. Then, realizing his overreaction, he shrank back in his seat. "I mean, it's prescription medicine, very expensive." "Eye drops, prescription medicine, very expensive." I laughed coldly. "Do you know how long I've been in the wine industry, Simon? 30 years. Do you know how many types of liquids I've smelled in these 30 years? From the finest Bordeaux to the cheapest adulterated wines, from natural juices to industrial alcohol, from perfumes to cleaning products. And this," I pointed to the vial, "is definitely not eye drops." Simon's eyes began to turn red, with tears welling up in his eyelids. "You only have one chance, Simon," I said seriously. "Tell me the truth, or I'll call the police right now. I'm sure the police will be very interested in this unknown liquid, especially when it's brought into a food production facility." I took a pre-prepared bank check for $20,000 from the drawer and placed it next to the vial on the table. "The one on the left can destroy you and your mother. The one on the right can save her life. Now, tell me exactly what Todd told you, without omitting a single word." Simon's tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. He looked at the check with a complex mixture of despair and hope shining in his eyes. Todd said it was just a prank." His voice was almost inaudible. "He said that this liquid, when it comes into contact with the glasses, when people drink, their mouths will turn blue, but it won't harm the body. It's to embarrass those pretentious wine tasters." "Do you believe him?" I asked. I don't know. I just know that my mother needs money. She needs surgery. I have no choice." "No choice?" I laughed coldly, holding the vial up to examine it against the window light. "Do you know that if someone dies or is seriously injured by this, you would become an accomplice?" "This isn't a harmless prank, Simon. It contains industrial alcohol and some kind of additive, enough to poison someone or even be lethal. They plan to replace our founder's collection with this, creating a food safety scandal to buy the winery at a low price." "Oh my God!" Simon's voice trembled, his face even paler. "I really didn't know. I thought it was just a joke." Simon completely broke down, falling to his knees, his voice trembling. "I didn't know, Mr. Sawyer. I really didn't know they were planning something so big. They only gave me $1,000. They said I just had to help a little at the tasting." $1,000, I sneered. "Your freedom and your mother's life are worth only that?" He bowed his head, sobbing uncontrollably, like a child who has made a mistake. That liquid, is it really poisonous?" He raised his head, his eyes full of fear. "Poisonous enough for you to spend the rest of your life in prison." My words made him tremble even more. The laws on food safety crimes are extremely severe. If someone dies from this, it means life in prison. "I don't want to go to jail," Simon cried like a child. "What will my mother do without me? She still needs treatment." I stared at him for a moment, then sighed. "Well, crying is useless. Now you have two choices. 1, cooperate with me. Do exactly as I say. Take these $20,000 and take your mother to San Francisco for treatment. 2, I call the police right now. You go straight to prison, and your mother is left with no one to care for her." He raised his head, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. You would really give me that much money?" Not to you, to your mother, I corrected, my voice becoming stern. And it comes with conditions. From now on, you must act exactly according to my instructions. This includes recording a full testimony detailing Todd and Emily's plan. Then, at tonight's tasting, you will also have a special task. Simon nodded quickly like someone clinging to a life raft. I'll do anything, Mr. Sawyer. Anything. Just to save my mother. Very well. I took out the recording equipment. So from the beginning, tell me the whole plan. Over the next half hour, Simon detailed Todd and Emily's conspiracy. They planned at tonight's tasting to replace Sawyer's Founders Collection with cheap wine adulterated with industrial alcohol and a certain additive, causing a major food safety incident. This would destroy the winery's reputation, the stock would plummet, and then a secret backer of Todd's, a wealthy businessman from Los Angeles, would take the opportunity to buy the winery at a low price, and Emily, for timely revealing the scandal, would be hired by the new management. She and Todd could control this century-old company together. My task is at 9 o'clock during the wine change to pour this liquid into the glasses prepared by the waiters. Simon pointed to the vial. Todd said this would make the wine look drugged, but it would actually just make people's lips turn blue, causing a prank and nothing more. What other instructions did they give you? I asked. They said I should leave immediately after, without staying at the scene. Todd said he would prepare an escape route for me. A car would be waiting for me at the back door. Now tell me, who is their contact? Are there their people at the hotel? I asked. Simon hesitated for a moment. Yes, the hotel's sommelier, Evan, is Todd's cousin. He will make sure that the swapped batch of wine reaches the main table. What else did Todd promise you? He said that after completing this, besides the $1,000, he would find me a job in Los Angeles so my mother could receive better care. Simon's voice carried a tone of bitter sarcasm. I was really stupid to believe him. So, do you know what wine they're going to use to replace our Founders Collection? Todd said it was a cheap wine he bought from an importer from North Africa with his own special formula. He said that wine is similar enough to the original that ordinary people wouldn't notice the difference, but it would cause food poisoning symptoms a day or two later. When do they plan to make the switch? Half an hour before the tasting begins, Simon explained. Todd, under the pretext of checking the quality, will ask to see the wine that will be displayed. Evan will cooperate with him, allowing him exclusive access to those bottles. What role does Emily play in this? She will be in charge of attracting everyone's attention, Simon replied. When Todd makes the switch, she will create a small incident, making sure everyone looks at her and not at Todd. Good, very detailed. I stopped the recording, satisfied. Now, listen to my plan. Tonight, you will still go and appear at the designated place and time. But I took out 2 similar vials from the drawer. You won't use what they gave you, but this that I'm giving you. What is it? Simon looked curiously at the vial. A better prank prop, I smiled. It's a completely harmless chemical reagent that will really make people's lips turn blue, but without causing any harm to health. I need you to pour it into the glasses at the specified time and then leave according to Todd's instructions. Only this time, you won't run away but wait for me at the back door. Is that all? Simon looked confused and incredulous. But then their plan will still succeed? People's lips will turn blue. Correct, but under my control. My eyes gleamed with cunning. I have a bigger plan, and you just need to do this small part. Are you sure it will work? Simon asked, his voice a mix of doubt and admiration. Trust me, I patted his shoulder. I've been in this business for 30 years. I know every aspect, every person. As long as you do exactly as I say, everything will be perfect. And besides, I added, this is your chance to redeem yourself. You helped them. Now you will help me, the town, all the people who could be hurt by them. Simon nodded firmly. I'll do it, Mr. Sawyer. I won't let you down. Good. I handed him the vial with the harmless reagent. Remember, at 9 o'clock sharp, not before or after. Do your part and leave. Wait for me at the back door. After Simon left, I looked at the clock. It was already 3 p.m. There were 5 hours left until the tasting, and I needed to quickly prepare the rest of the plan. I entered the dusty laboratory, my grandfather's territory. This room, located deep within the winery, was a place almost no employee knew existed. Here were kept the winemaking notes and experimental records of my grandfather and father for decades. It was the most valuable intangible heritage of Sawyer Vineyards. The laboratory was steeped in a special smell, a mixture of old wood, old books, and various chemical reagents. The walls were covered with yellowed photographs that recorded the history of several generations of the Sawyer family. My grandfather, a short, sturdy man with thick glasses, always dressed in that wine-stained work suit. My father, a tall, thin figure with a serious expression that hid his passion for winemaking. And the young me, just taking over the winery, full of dreams and hopes. These photographs had been witnesses to the ups and downs of Sawyer Vineyards. During Prohibition, my grandfather risked his life to protect the winery, hiding the best vines in barrels. In the difficult economic times after the Great Depression, my father insisted on maintaining traditional methods, refusing to use low-quality materials. And now, it was my turn to defend this family legacy. From a locked cabinet, I took out a heavy leather-bound research notebook. This notebook was almost 100 years old and recorded the research of my grandfather's generation against counterfeit wines. During Prohibition, when counterfeit wines were rampant, my grandfather developed several simple but effective methods to detect the authenticity of wine. In the yellowed pages, I found the record about 2 extracts of local plants that, when mixed, produced a strange color-changing reaction. One was tannic acid extracted from oak bark, the other, a pigment extracted from a certain wildflower that only grows in the Napa Highlands. These records described in detail the extraction methods, mixing ratios, and various test results. "A true genius," I muttered, stroking my grandfather's handwriting. He already knew this day would come. Following the ancient formula in the notebook, with a distiller and dropper, I meticulously prepared reagents A and B. Used individually, they are harmless, but if the wall of the glass is first treated with reagent B, and then wine containing reagent A is poured in, the oral mucosa of whoever drinks it will turn bright blue within 10 minutes, lasting for about 24 hours. This was a method my grandfather used to test the authenticity of wine. Pure grape wine produced this reaction, while low-quality wine mixed with industrial alcohol or other additives did not. My grandfather had used this method to expose many sellers of fake wine. But with the advancement of technology, this ancient technique was gradually forgotten. Now, almost no one knows it. I carefully packaged reagent A into small vials. One part I had already given to Simon, the rest would be used for other phases. Reagent B needed to be applied directly to the glasses, for which I would need the cooperation of the hotel manager. Perfect. I examined both reagents, ensuring their nature and concentration met the requirements. I restored the laboratory to its original state, locked the door, and returned to my office. Time passed minute by minute, getting closer and closer to the tasting. I needed to make sure that all the key people would attend this grand spectacle. I picked up the phone and began to contact each person I needed. Each call was carefully designed, getting straight to the point. "Mr. Mayor," I said to the person on the other end of the line, "tonight, someone wants to stab the heart of our town. I need you to come as a witness to defend the honor of Napa Valley." The mayor hesitated for a moment. He has always been a cautious person, reluctant to get easily involved in disputes. "Sebastian, are you joking? What kind of stab?" "A stab that could destroy the reputation of all of us." My tone was serious. "Someone plans to create a serious food safety incident at tonight's tasting, damaging Napa's reputation. I already have conclusive evidence, but I need people with authority present as witnesses." "That is a very serious accusation, Sebastian." The mayor's voice also became serious. "If it's true, of course I will attend. But if you're just exaggerating, I swear on the souls of my grandfather and my father," I said categorically. "These outsiders think our small town is easy to fool, but they don't know we have iron-willed leaders like you." This compliment worked. The mayor's tone softened noticeably. "All right, I'll be there. What time?" 8 o'clock at the Grand Hotel. Please dress formally. After all, it's an important occasion." Of course," the mayor promised. "I'll bring some important members of the town council. After all, the reputation of Napa concerns us all." After hanging up, I immediately called Dennis, the editor-in-chief of the local newspaper. Dennis is a veteran journalist who, although he only works for a local paper, has an exceptionally sharp nose for news. He always wears that yellowish trench coat with a pen and a small notebook always in his jacket pocket. Dennis, do you want an exclusive story that could land you on the front page of national newspapers? Bring your best photographer. Sebastian, Dennis's voice immediately went up an octave. What news could make the national front page? Trust me, it will be the most explosive news of your career, I said mysteriously. Corporate conspiracy, food safety crisis, adultery, and a dramatic live capture. Exciting enough? Dennis is an old journalist with a good nose, and he immediately took the bait. What? Who? Tell me more. 8:30, lobby of the Grand Hotel, I maintained the mystery. I promise you won't be disappointed. Bring your camera and recording equipment. Get ready to capture a historic moment. It better be true, Sebastian, Dennis warned, though I could hear the ill-disguised excitement in his voice. If this is just to promote your wine. If it's not true, I'll offer a year's supply of Sawyer Reserve free to your newspaper. This promise completely convinced Dennis. In our small town, promises are never made lightly, let alone broken. All right, I'll bring Salvador. He's our best photographer, Dennis said. 8:30, hotel lobby. Finally, I called Frank, the head of the food safety office and Emily's cousin. This was the most complicated call. Frank had always spoiled his cousin, granting her almost anything. But he is also an official with strong principles, with no compromise on food safety issues. Frank, I went straight to the point. I need you to come to the Grand Hotel tonight. Is something wrong, Sebastian? Frank sounded somewhat confused. I already have plans for tonight. Cousin, Emily's going to play with fire tonight. If you don't want to get burned, you'd better come see how big the fire is, I said bluntly. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Sebastian, what are you talking about? What's wrong with Emily? At tonight's tasting, someone will try to create a serious food safety incident, and your cousin, coincidentally, is one of the main conspirators. That's a very serious accusation, Sebastian. Frank's voice turned cold. You're accusing my family member. Evidence enough to send her and her lover to prison, I said calmly. The question is, when this blows up, as her relative and the head of the food safety office, whose side will you be on? There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Frank said slowly, I understand. But if you're playing some trick or trying to slander Emily, it's not a trick, Frank. It's the pit your cousin dug for herself. She's not just targeting me, but the reputation of the entire region. As an official, you can't turn a blind eye to this kind of thing. At 8, I'll be on time, Frank said briefly, and then hung up. I knew Frank was in a dilemma. On one hand, the affection for his relative. On the other, the loyalty to his duty. But I trust that when the evidence is conclusive, he will make the right decision. Putting down the phone, I looked at the clock. There was one last preparation to make. I personally drove to the Grand Hotel, the only 4-star hotel in town and the venue for all major events. The hotel building has a strong mission revival style, with stucco walls, arched porticos, and exquisite wrought iron decorations showing history and elegance everywhere. The hotel manager, Gene, is a portly middle-aged man who has managed this hotel for over 20 years, witnessing countless important events in Napa. He is a true local who likes to wear suits that are too tight, always sweating profusely, but extremely meticulous in his work. Sebastian! He hugged me warmly, exuding the scent of expensive cologne. Everything is prepared according to your requirements. Tonight will be the most glorious night for Sawyer Vineyards. Perhaps not so smooth, Gene. I lowered my voice and took him aside. Someone wants to ruin your party, and mine too. Gene's smile immediately disappeared. What do you mean? Who would dare to cause trouble at the Grand Hotel? I briefly explained Todd and Emily's plan, and how they planned to use the help of Evan inside the hotel. Gene's face grew darker and darker until finally it was almost as red as his tie. That little scoundrel, Gene cursed. I knew his behavior had been strange lately. I'm going to fire him immediately. No, don't be hasty, I held his shoulder. We need him to continue working, at least until tonight, but you need to make sure he has no opportunity to touch those bottles of wine. I have a better plan. I took a bottle of 82 Sawyer Reserve from my bag, one of the most precious pieces in our winery, now hard to find on the market. Gene's eyes lit up immediately, like a child seeing candy. Gene, I need you to do me a favor. I handed him that bottle of wine and a small vial with reagent B. Treat all the glasses with this special disinfectant and have your people focus the cameras on the VIP seats in the front row, especially on that woman dressed like a peacock and the slippery man beside her. Jean, seeing the bottle of wine and hearing my words, winked with complicity. What is this stuff? Is it safe? Completely safe. It's just a reagent that shows whether the wine is pure or not, I explained. If someone tries to pass off low-quality wine as good, this little thing will expose them. Ah, I understand. Jean smiled slyly, showing a row of yellowish teeth. For the honor of Napa, this small matter is nothing. I will personally supervise every detail. And also, I added, tell your sommelier Evan that if he dares to interfere tonight, I have already prepared a complete file of evidence of his involvement in the winery's smuggling. Do you know what the maximum penalty is for food safety crimes? Jean's expression became serious. He won't dare. I'll watch him personally, Sebastian. I guarantee that no one will cause trouble in my hotel tonight. Good. I nodded with satisfaction. Then, see you tonight. Back at the winery, I went into the bathroom and washed up carefully. Then, I changed into the suit I had specially prepared for tonight. It was a custom-made navy blue suit, well cut, showing my dignity as the winery's director without being too ostentatious. Emily always mocked my way of dressing, saying that I wore suits like a farmer disguised as a gentleman. Those who don't know would think she married a gardener. Tonight, I want her and everyone to see what true elegance is. I adjusted my tie in front of the mirror, every wrinkle on my face telling the story of years of hard work and patience. Those hands, hardened by the sun and the earth, now gently smoothed every fold of the suit. The man in the mirror was no longer that country boy ridiculed by his wife, but a hunter about to catch his prey. I checked all the details one last time, making sure that every step followed the plan. Then, I took out the wedding ring I had recovered from the barrel of corks and put it in my pocket. It would play an important role tonight, becoming the beginning of Emily's nightmare. The game begins, my dear, I said to my reflection in the mirror, my eyes shining with determination. At 7:30, I arrived early at the Grand Hotel to make sure everything was ready. The hotel lobby was newly decorated. A red carpet extended from the entrance to the ballroom, with flowers and decorations on both sides, creating a solemn and elegant atmosphere. Jean confirmed that all the glasses had been treated with reagent B, and the sommelier Evan was assigned to the back kitchen, far from the main hall. He had also specifically adjusted the position of the cameras to ensure they would capture the most crucial moment. Everything is ready, Sebastian, Jean said in a low voice. I've warned Evan. He's as quiet as a lamb now. I've also placed 2 security guards at the entrance to the cellar. No one can enter without permission. Very good, Jean, I nodded with satisfaction. After tonight, your hotel will be legendary throughout Napa Valley. I hope it's a good legend, Jean smiled, and not a scene of food poisoning disaster. Trust me, I patted his shoulder. It will be a show no one will forget. At 8 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. The mayor arrived punctually with several members of the town council, all wearing formal suits looking solemn and serious. The mayor is a short, stout man in his 60s, always with a neatly trimmed beard, walking with the characteristic confidence of a politician. He came over to me and shook my hand. Sebastian, I hope you haven't exaggerated, he said in a low voice. If there really is someone who wants to damage the reputation of Napa, we will definitely make them pay the price. You will soon see the evidence, Mr. Mayor, I promised. Dennis and his photographer also arrived, even 15 minutes before the agreed time, showing how much he valued this exclusive news. Dennis wore his characteristic trench coat with a notebook in his hand, his eyes keenly scanning the room, looking for potential news points. This had better be true, Sebastian, he told me secretly. I left the coverage of a town council meeting to come here. Believe me, Dennis, tonight's news will be on the front page of national newspapers, I assured him. Frank was the last to arrive. His expression was terribly serious, his eyes constantly searching for Emily in the crowd. He wore a gray suit, more formal than usual, obviously prepared for possible official action. When he saw me, he simply nodded without saying much. The ballroom glittered with splendor. Crystal chandeliers shed golden light on every corner, reflecting on the wine glasses and revealing the amber color of the liquid. The town's celebrities, top wine critics from all over the country, journalists, and some specially invited guests from San Francisco gathered in a lively and expectant atmosphere. No one knew what was about to happen. At 8:30, Emily and Todd finally appeared. Emily wore a striking red dress, not an elegant burgundy, but a fire engine red, as if she wanted to become the center of attention in the room. The neckline of her dress was so high it almost challenged the moral line of the town's older generation, and the pearl necklace and diamond bracelet on her neck and wrist sparkled under the lights. Todd wore a gray suit that looked expensive, with his hair meticulously fixed with gel, exuding a deliberately created air of success. His watch and cufflinks shone under the lights, but I knew they were carefully selected replicas designed to fool ordinary eyes. As soon as they entered the room, they immediately became the center of attention, but not entirely for the reasons they wanted. I noticed some traditional winery owners exchanging disdainful glances, obviously disapproving of this ostentatious style. In a place like Napa Valley, where tradition is valued, true nobility never needs to display its status through appearance. Emily walked toward the stage like a queen, with Todd following closely behind like a faithful servant. She didn't even look at me, as if I were air, but I knew that in her heart she must be gloating, thinking that tonight's plan was about to succeed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emily was on stage, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Welcome to the annual tasting of Sawyer Vineyards. Tonight, we will offer you an unprecedented experience." Her speech was full of false enthusiasm and grandiloquent words, talking about innovation, breakthrough, and the future, but without mentioning a word about the tradition and craftsmanship that truly constitute the soul of Sawyer Vineyards. Meanwhile, Todd behaved like the host on the ground floor, toasting with various celebrities, patting shoulders as if he were already the new owner of the winery. I stood in a corner, silently observing everything. Simon appeared as planned, pushing a cart with wine glasses, moving through the crowd. Our eyes met in the air. He nodded imperceptibly, confirming that everything was going according to plan. At 9 o'clock, Emily finished her long speech and officially announced the start of the tasting. "Tonight we will show you the latest reserve collection from Sawyer Vineyards, which represents the future and innovation of the Napa Valley region." Emily's voice was full of false enthusiasm. I saw Simon, according to the plan, pouring the appetizer containing reagent A into the glasses treated with reagent B. The moment the liquid touched the walls of the glasses, the invisible chemical reaction was complete. He exchanged a look of confirmation with me, and then quietly left the room, according to my instructions, to wait for me at the back door. I looked around, confirming that all the key people were in their positions. The mayor and the town council members were sitting in the front row, the head of the food safety office. Frank was sitting not far away, tense. The newspaper editor Dennis and his photographer had their equipment ready. There was even a local television production crew who had come to film a food show and coincidentally arrived just in time for this grand spectacle. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emily raised her glass again, a smile of victory on her face, "to the brilliant future of Sawyer Vineyards." Everyone raised their glasses and drank. Time seemed to slow down suddenly. I could clearly see Emily's satisfied smile, the greed shining in Todd's eyes, and the look of confirmation Jean sent me from the corner. The first to have problems was Ramon Sanchez, a wine critic known for his sharp tongue. Just as he was about to speak, an elegant lady beside him let out a short, sharp cry, pointing at his mouth. "Ramon, your mouth! Your mouth has turned blue!" Sanchez confusedly took out his phone for a selfie and then let out an even louder scream. His lips, the organ that arrogantly judged every wine, now showed a brilliant blue color, as if he had just eaten a pile of blueberry ice cream. Then, panic spread like a virus. The entire ballroom became a sea of blue lips. People looked in horror at each other's faces. Some began to cough, some ran to the restrooms, others took out their phones to call for emergencies. What's happening? Has someone poisoned us? Someone help us? Flashes, panicked and comical expressions from the people, the television hostess not knowing what to do, formed a surreal picture. The whole room fell into chaos like a carefully orchestrated disaster movie. Emily and Todd's expressions went from satisfaction to terror and then to confusion. They exchanged a panicked look. Obviously, this was not part of their plan. They originally planned to replace the good wine with toxic, low-quality wine, causing a real health crisis, not this kind of situation that seemed like a joke. At the most chaotic moment, I calmly walked up to the stage, with the spotlights focusing on me. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm." My voice was not loud, but it had an undeniable authority. "I know this looks scary, but please trust me. It's just a harmless chemical reaction that will disappear naturally in 24 hours. The crowd's panic subsided a little. Emily looked at me with wide eyes, unable to believe that I was handling this crisis so calmly. Her gaze was full of confusion and caution, as if she were wondering if I knew something. This was originally going to be a marketing trick for tonight, the Blue Judgment series, demonstrating how we distinguish between true and fake wines. As you can see, a truly good wine, upon contact with certain substances, produces this peculiar blue reaction. This explanation made some people laugh, easing the atmosphere. Some even began to take pictures, thinking it was an interesting experience. Emily and Todd also sighed in relief, obviously thinking I was trying to save the situation, covering up their conspiracy. Todd even made a gesture to Emily, as if to say, "Look, this fool is still helping us clean up the mess." Then my face darkened, and I pointed to the big screen. But tonight, someone wanted to play something that wasn't a joke. On the big screen, the surveillance video began to play. Todd handing cardboard boxes and money to Simon's testimony, and most crucially, the audio recording of Emily and Todd conspiring in the office. It clearly explained their plan to replace the reserve with low-quality wine, cause a food safety scandal, destroy the winery's reputation, and then buy it at a low price. Bah! And this, I took out the small vial Simon had given me, is the toxic substance they plan to use tonight. Fortunately, we discovered this conspiracy in advance and replaced the substance with a harmless chemical reagent. Tonight's blue lips are just a harmless warning, but if their plan had succeeded, the livelihoods of hundreds of people in our town and the reputation of the Napa Valley region would have suffered irreparable damage. Suddenly, the room fell completely silent. Everyone stared in astonishment at this scene. Emily turned pale, her legs grew weak, almost unable to stand. Todd looked as if a petrification spell had been cast on him, motionless in his place, his eyes filled with terror. This is the surprise gift that Emily Sawyer and Todd Rodriguez had prepared for all of us. My voice echoed in the silent ballroom. The mayor was the first to stand up, his blue lips trembling with anger. "This is a betrayal of our entire town. Where are the police?" The head of the food safety office, Emily's cousin, also stood up. His expression was complex with anger, pain, and shame. As Emily's relative, I feel ashamed, but as an official, I must do my duty. Arrest them. In the midst of the chaos, Todd tried to escape, but was stopped by the security guards. His arrogance instantly collapsed, turning from a confident businessman to a frightened criminal. He was so scared that he wet himself, a dark stain spreading from his crotch to his thigh, and everyone saw it. He collapsed on the floor, crying and begging. "It wasn't my idea. It was Emily. She planned everything. I was just blinded by love." This man who once boasted of being a real man now cried like a caught thief, shifting all responsibility. This act completely exposed his true nature, a coward who only knows how to conspire behind others' backs. Emily also tried to flee, but she tripped on her high heels like a butterfly with stepped-on wings fluttering on the floor. When they put the handcuffs on her, she was still cursing hysterically with her blue mouth. "Sebastian, you damn bastard! You set me up! I'll kill you!" The cameras gave her a 10-second close-up, that once beautiful face now grotesque and terrifying due to anger and blue lips. Her carefully constructed image completely collapsed, revealing the ugly soul hidden behind the beautiful appearance. The television production crew excitedly recorded the entire process. It would definitely be the most dramatic program of their careers. Dennis and his photographer also did not waste time, taking numerous photographs that would surely occupy the front page of all the newspapers the next day. When the police took Emily and Todd away, I walked to the front and addressed the still shocked crowd. "Everyone, let me apologize for the chaos tonight. But also please believe that every bottle of wine from Sawyer Vineyards embodies our insistence on quality and respect for tradition. We will not allow anyone to destroy it. I raised my glass. To the true spirit of Napa Valley. The room erupted in warm applause. Everyone raised their glasses in response. Although their lips were blue, their eyes were filled with respect and recognition. This is Napa Valley. This is our small town. We may seem rigid, stubborn, inflexible, but we know how to protect what really matters: tradition, quality, and integrity. After that night, things developed even more dramatically than I had anticipated. The media frantically covered this incident. The photos and videos of the Blue Judgment went viral on social media. Emily and Todd's faces were enlarged on the front pages of newspapers and news sites. Their names became the object of ridicule throughout the country. Blue-lipped lovers, vineyard traders, fraud of the century. These headlines flooded everything, exposing their crimes to the light of day. Especially the photo of Todd wetting himself, repeatedly reproduced by some less formal media, becoming a national laughingstock. The next morning, I methodically packed all of Emily's expensive items that she used to show off. I used her favorite Hermes silk scarf to wipe the dust off the suitcase and then threw it inside. I carefully checked every drawer, every closet, making sure not to leave any trace of her. This house, once filled with the scent of her perfume, would soon return to the way I like it: simple, neat, without ostentation. I stuffed all her jewelry, cosmetics, and brand-name clothes into 3 large suitcases, treating them as carelessly and roughly as if they were trash. For her priceless handbags, I only used a common cardboard box, not caring at all about their noble status. Those designer clothes she used to boast about, I randomly stuffed them into the corners of the suitcases, with wrinkles and marks everywhere. You love ostentation, so I'll make all your ostentation ruined, I muttered to myself, seeing those mistreated luxury items. When Emily burst in after being released on bail, I had already finished packing. Her face still had a slight blue tint, whether it was a residue of the chemical reaction or a mark of anger. She looked exhausted, with deep dark circles under her eyes. She had obviously spent a sleepless night at the police station. "You despicable bastard!" she screamed as soon as she entered. "You set me up." "A trap?" I replied calmly. "You were the one who chose to betray this home, this town, all the people who trusted you. I just made the truth come to light." "What truth? You think you've won?" she sneered coldly. "You've destroyed me, but you've also destroyed yourself. The whole town is laughing at you, laughing at the poor fool who had to resort to tricks to get revenge for being cheated on." "Perhaps," I remained impassive, "but at least I've preserved Sawyer Vineyards. I've preserved the work of several generations, whereas you, Emily, have nothing except a bad reputation." A flash of despair crossed her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by arrogance. "You think this is the end? I still have friends, I have connections. I will rise again, while you will be left alone in this ruined winery forever." "Friends? Connections?" I laughed coldly. "Look outside. Look where those friends who used to flatter you are." I opened the curtains, pointing outside. The yard was already full of people. There were journalists, neighbors, and even some friends who had attended her lavish parties. But now they all watched with an expression of curiosity and mockery, waiting to see the continuation of this drama. "You think they're here to support you?" I said sarcastically. "They're just here to watch the show, to see how the great Emily Sawyer goes from social queen to a criminal despised by all." Emily's face turned even paler, seeming to realize for the first time how terrible her situation was. Faced with her screams and curses, I remained silent, only walking over to the barrel of used corks. Under everyone's gaze, I reached into my pocket and took out the wedding ring she had thrown away. I wiped it with a cloth and then walked over to her, placing it gently on the zipper of the suitcase. "Yesterday you said you were single. Today I'm telling you, from now on, you will always be alone." My voice was soft but heavy as lead. Emily stood motionless. She instinctively reached out to touch the ring, but then pulled her hand back, as if it were something burning. "Don't think you can kick me out," she hissed. "This is my house too. I have the right to live here." Not anymore, I took out a document. Remember 3 years ago when you insisted I put the house in your name to facilitate domestic affairs? In reality, I only transferred 49% of the property rights. And just yesterday, the court approved an order to freeze your assets. As a suspect in commercial crimes, your share of the property will be used to compensate for potential losses. You can't do this, she screamed. It's not fair. Life is never fair, Emily, I said calmly. Otherwise, a husband who has worked faithfully for 30 years would not be betrayed by his wife, right? I opened the front door. Outside, the townspeople had voluntarily gathered, blocking the entire yard. Some people had cameras, others phones, and others just stood there silently, conveying their judgment with their gaze. No one said a word, but their looks, that mixture of contempt, anger, and disappointment, formed an invisible wall. Emily, dragging her suitcase with every step she took, the crowd opened a path, creating a path to hell for her. Those few meters seemed to take her a century to walk. I noticed that halfway there she had already thrown off those high heels that made her stumble, walking barefoot like a fallen princess. When her figure disappeared around the corner of the street, the crowd erupted in applause and cheers. The neighbors came up one by one to pat me on the shoulder, expressing their support. Sebastian, you did the right thing. That woman deserved a lesson a long time ago. Sawyer Vineyards is the pride of our town. It couldn't be destroyed by her. I nodded, thanking them for their support, but in my heart, I felt a void. The satisfaction of revenge is fleeting. What truly endures is responsibility and mission. In the following days, things developed beyond everyone's expectations. In court, to reduce his own sentence, Todd tearfully accused Emily as the mastermind, saying that he himself was blinded by love. Your Honor, she seduced me. She planned everything, Todd cried, his face distorted by excessive effort. She said her husband was an incompetent fool. She said that if I helped her, we could live a luxurious life together. I was fooled by her. I was controlled by her. Todd's performance almost made one believe he was an innocent victim, if it weren't for the audio recording played in court that clearly showed he was an active participant in the plan. Emily shouted in response, "Liar! It was clearly you who said you would buy the winery for me. You who said that toxic wine would only make people have diarrhea, that no one would die. You said it was a perfect plan, that no one would suspect us." How can you say that? Todd looked deeply hurt, with tears running uncontrollably. It was you. You planned everything. You told me all the details. You told me who to contact for the cheap wine. You told me how to bribe the employees. The two of them staged a shameful scene before the judge, exposing each other, revealing all the dirty details. Every word of theirs was recorded by journalists, becoming another explosive headline in the next day's newspapers. The entire courtroom was shocked. The judge had to bang the gavel several times to call for order. "Look," Todd pointed emotionally at Emily. "This woman even had a passport and a plane ticket ready. She planned to flee the country immediately after. She never intended to stay with me. She was just using me." "That was your passport and your ticket," Emily screamed. "You said you would take me to Paris. You said you had friends there who would protect us." More ironically, Todd's secret backer, a business speculator from Los Angeles, to distance himself, voluntarily provided a large amount of evidence proving that Todd had participated several times in the sale of fake wine and commercial fraud. This evidence worsened Todd's situation even more. His legal team even suggested he plead guilty to avoid more serious consequences. Meanwhile, the Blue Judgment incident caused a huge stir throughout the country. Various media outlets competed for coverage. Social media was filled with photos and videos of blue lips. People were curious about every detail of the story, especially how that seemingly honest but actually cunning winemaker had trapped the adulterous couple. The honest man's revenge became a hot topic. Several versions of the story circulated online. Some versions even added various exaggerated details, describing me as a kind of superhero. My photo and interview requests arrived like snowflakes, but I declined most, only accepting interviews from some formal media outlets. I held a press conference not only to clarify the facts, but also to announce the launch of the Blue Judgment wine series. This was a specially designed limited edition red wine with a deep blue glass bottle and a label with the image of a pair of blue lips. "This wine represents the power of truth and the triumph of tradition," I said before the cameras. "It reminds us that, no matter how elaborate a lie is, it will eventually be revealed by the truth. Like this wine, it seems common, but when it encounters certain conditions, it reveals its true nature." More importantly, I announced that all the profits from the first season of sales of the Blue Judgment series would be donated to the newly established Solano Guardians Fund to help families in need in the region, with Simon's mother as the first beneficiary. "I believe that even the darkest moments can produce the best wine," I said sincerely. "Like this crisis, it has brought us closer together, made us more determined to protect this land and our traditions." This action raised my reputation and that of Sawyer Vineyards to unprecedented levels. People no longer saw me as an old-fashioned and boring winery manager, but as a wise and decisive leader, a true guardian of tradition. Orders poured in like snowflakes. The Blue Judgment series became the most sought-after product on the market. Even foreign wine merchants began to inquire about importing it. We had to increase production, expand production lines, and even hire more employees to meet the demand. A year later, at the Harvest Festival, the winery's celebration was more lively than ever. Simon had already become my capable assistant. His performance exceeded all expectations, showing a talent and passion for winemaking. His mother's illness was also under control thanks to the treatment of specialists in San Francisco, with a significantly improved quality of life. The whole town was immersed in joy and prosperity. The production and sales of Sawyer Vineyards reached new records, boosting the overall local economic development. Even those who once mocked my rigidity and boredom now greatly admired me. The mayor, patting me on the shoulder, said, "Sebastian, you not only protected your winery, but the livelihood of all of us. If you hadn't exposed that conspiracy in time, the consequences would be unimaginable." I raised my glass, looking out at the vineyards under the sunset. Every life there contains the heart and soul of several generations of my family. I drank a sip of wine. That is the purest and sweetest taste after removing all impurities. "To Sawyer, to Napa," I said softly. As for Emily and Todd, their fates were completely different. Todd, due to multiple accumulated commercial crimes and fraud charges, was sentenced to 8 years in prison. In prison, he suffered mockery and harassment from other inmates, especially the story of the blue lips, which became the most popular joke in the prison. It is said that some inmates even secretly painted his lips blue while he slept, making him wake up every morning in fear and shame. His supposed high-level clients and important connections immediately distanced themselves from him after his imprisonment. His wine company went bankrupt, his assets were auctioned to pay debts, and his image as a successful businessman completely collapsed. He once tried to contact me through his lawyer, proposing some supposed cooperation offers, hoping I would say something good for him in court. In return, he was willing to provide valuable business information. My response was simple: a limited edition bottle of Blue Judgment sent to his cell with a card that only said, "For those who want to taste low-quality wine." It is said that after receiving this gift, he did not leave his cell for a whole week, fearing the mockery of other inmates. Emily's situation was no better. Although she was finally only sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation, she had already been completely socially isolated. Her former friends distanced themselves from her. Her so-proud social circle completely excluded her. Those good friends who once attended her lavish parties now didn't even answer her calls. She tried to start over in San Francisco, but the fame of the blue-lipped woman had already spread throughout the country, being recognized and mocked wherever she went. Most ironically, during her time in prison, due to her good behavior, she was assigned to work in the prison kitchen. It is said that every day she carefully checked all the food and drink, fearing that someone would interfere with them. This kind of paranoia became her eternal curse, a psychological prison from which she could not escape. Once, during a business trip to San Francisco, I happened to see her in a coffee shop. Emily, now released, seemed to have aged 10 years, with a vacant look and cautious gestures, like a frightened animal. She wore cheap clothes without the aura of those luxury items. Her whole person seemed dark and exhausted. Our eyes met in the air, and she immediately turned to leave, running out without even taking her coffee. At that moment, I did not feel the expected satisfaction, only a quiet release. I no longer hated her, because the damage she had done to herself was much deeper than anything I could have inflicted on her. In the end, I did not destroy their lives. I only made them lose what they valued most. Emily lost her vanity and social status. Todd lost his business credibility and freedom. They tasted the bitter fruit of betrayal. They also witnessed my counterattack, not through violence, but through wisdom and strategy. Like a good wine, revenge also requires patience and skill. And I, Sebastian Sawyer, have already proven with practical actions one point: never underestimate the wisdom and determination of an honest man. Sometimes, the sharpest sword is hidden under the calmest surface of the water. Thus, I not only preserved the century-old family business, but also achieved a rebirth in the midst of the crisis. And that discarded wedding ring, along with all the bad memories, was buried by me in the deepest soil of the winery, nourishing the vines of the next year. Life, like making a good wine, requires time, patience, and decision at crucial moments. The most important thing is, no matter how many storms are faced, never forget the original heart, those things that are truly worth protecting. And now, when I stand on the high ground of Sawyer Vineyards, contemplating the endless vineyards, I know that I have found true peace and satisfaction, not in revenge, not in victory, but in the process of protection and creation. This is the most beautiful taste of life. Thank you for listening to this exciting story. We would love to know, where in the world are you watching this video? What time is it there now? Please tell us in the comments, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We wish you a wonderful day. If this story has moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We hope to meet you again in another story.